Jeez.
Hi, Internet. We should be good. Hi. Yeah, we're live. Just testing out our technology. So, all right. I think we're good.
All right.
Hi, Internet. We're testing it out, making sure we're good.
Gonna...
Hi. Just testing out our technology. All right. Well, we can hear the dog. He wants to be in on our conference. So we just went live a couple minutes early just to test our tech. But we'll hang out.
All right.
So I'm Katie.
I'm also Katie.
And
easy to remember.
Easy to remember, right? 2 Ks. So just if you're joining us, I have the chat open on the YouTube channel. So if you want to type a question or you want to tell me who's here, that way we can, when we do our presentation, some of you guys can tell us what some of your questions are. We appreciate you tuning in at 10:30 on a Sunday, no matter where you are. Saturday.
Don't chip us up one day.
And it's, I don't know, nice out here in New York, wherever you're joining us from. So it's really weird to watch yourself.
I know.
Here.
It's like freaking me out a little bit.
So I'm excited for people to join us here. Thanks for coming. If you want to, if you go in the comment section of the YouTube, you'll see there's a bit.ly link to our presentation. You can certainly join us. And hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
Louisville, Kentucky. Is it Louisville or Louisville? People get this little question all the time. So we'll wait a couple more minutes. I got 10 people. Thanks for joining us. You want to say anything?
No, just we're excited to be here. We have so many great things to share with you all today.
Yes.
And keep the questions coming if you have them.
All right, we got Plymouth.
Missouri.
Ooh, Canada. Cool. I've only been to Canada once. Have you been to Canada?
I have, right? Because I also teach French, which you'll probably hear about. So, but I see you're from Ontario, so maybe I won't speak French with you.
All right. Oh, hi, Val. Hi. All right. Hi. Weehawken, not too far. All right. So great job so far. We got a lot of people tuning in. Excellent. Palm Beach. Hey, my brother lives in Palm Beach.
Ah, bonjour.
So what we're going to do is we're just going to get started. We have so many great things we're going to talk about today. Just to give you a little background, I'm going to start here. I'm going to share my PowerPoint. Mineola. Hey, Long Island person. Nice. So again, if you click down on the bottom of in the description, you will see I posted a bit.ly to this. I don't know what that says.
Je parle français aussi.
What does that mean?
I also speak French. All right.
Bon chance is about the extent of my French.
We've tried to get her to learn some French with our Haitian students, but we'll keep working on it.
So again, if you click down at the bottom, you'll see it's bit.ly SS Virtual 19. It is case sensitive, so please feel free to join in our presentation, and I think we'll get started.
All right, here we go.
Okay. So present to everyone. Okay. I'm just going to drag this over here.
Okay.
I'm going to put this here and lower it. Okay.
Right.
So we are social studies teachers. So Katie, you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Katie Newmare. I also go by Catherine. And I've been co-teaching in 10th grade global history and geography for the last 3 years. So as you can see, this is a picture of my co-teacher, Greg Sill, and I. We recently presented at the Long Island ESOL conference on co-teaching. But today we're going to present to you some of the things that we've been working on. So over the last 3 years, we've really been working on preparing our students for the Regents exam. This past year, we've been working on especially introducing the Enduring Issues essays. For those of you who are in New York State, you might know that the Global History Regents has changed over the last couple of years. And another thing that we've been working on is the constructed response questions, or the CRQs, because these are brand new. And both of these two new changes have been quite a challenge, especially for our ELLs, not only for our ELLs, but for the gen ed students too. So we've tried to develop new strategies to really bring global to life and to make the writing process a little easier for everyone.
Okay. I had the wrong screen up, so now we're gonna learn. So again, this is Katie and Greg here. So it's interesting too, because we've been doing this now, I guess, 3 years we've been doing co-teaching and social studies. So that'll be our screen. Okay. So just a little bit about me. I am all over the social studies department. I co-teach currently in American history, and I also co-teach in 12th grade social studies with 2 different teachers, because in New York State, students need to take a senior social studies, and it's an interesting dynamic because students take it half a year, and then we take it, they take it over economics 1 semester and PIG 1 semester. So for U.S. history and government, I work with 2 teachers. I worked with one woman, Rosalind Antoniazzi, for 2 years. We did not co-teach this year. We will be teaching together next year. And I've worked with another gentleman, Brian Thone, for the last 2 years. So in New York State, the U.S. History and Government course is a 1-year intensive course with the New York State Regents in June. And also a big chunk of what the curriculum is instructing students on governmental functions, which can be present an issue for our ELLs, because government is different in all different countries. So I do find with my co-teachers that we do have to really break down what is government for the students. This year, we also have, our curriculum hasn't changed. Our curriculum will be changing next year. So we still have the document-based question essay and the scaffold, a thematic essay. We go over teaching students how to decode the difficult language. And it's also too about making content meaningful for our ELLs. For participation in government and economics in 12th grade, our students, it's important too that we create safe spaces for conversations that relate to current politics. We've been very lucky that our students understand, gen ed and special ed and ELL students, what the current climate is and how do we make meaningful conversations regarding current issues in politics that could be sensitive for our ELLs. So my co-teachers, Jonathan Ferrante and John Macarello, we've been able to really bridge the gap between our 2 groups of students. So that's just a little bit about us and what we do, and I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is, that's me, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, is what we do in class with our students. It's important to know that we like to do activities that are comprehensible input, right? We want the ELLs to make sure that they are involved in the learning process. So what's the big question is, how do we bring history to life? Right? How do we bring it to life, right? And each of our students comes with a different set of skills, right? We have students that come from different countries, and what they learn in their different countries is different, right?
Right. So especially with global history, since we are touching on events that happened all across the globe, our students already have perhaps learned about their particular country and the way that they see their own history. And so now to learn global history through the lens of the United States is a little different. And so to have to kind of reteach and also acknowledge and appreciate their former education can sometimes be a challenge. But working with Greg Sill, we've done a good job with that and have been able to have our students really share what they know about these particular events and incorporate that so everyone has like a global view on each particular event.
Yep. So let's see, here are some of the ways that I'll talk about U.S. history first, how we bring history to life. Okay, so in American history, some of the activities that we've done is what I like to call a post-it response. So we prompt students with activities, we scaffold them, and we ask them to respond to a question in which they would then write their answer in whether, if they're a newcomer or if they're stronger, they can write in their native language. And what they do is they write it on a Post-it. Depending on the student, sometimes I'll put like a visual on there and they have to circle or something. And then what they do is when they're done, they walk up to the board and they post it, put it on the board. And then my co-teacher and I, we kind of just start pulling answers. And it's a nice way to lower the affective filter for our students, because especially in our co-taught classes, they may really know the material, but they just may not want to raise their hand and participate. So it's a nice way for them to get something in. So that's a super great activity. You can get a template online to print on a Post-it. So I totally love that. Another thing that we do is I use tons and tons and tons of visuals, especially in American history. We find that students sometimes do not know geography very well. They don't understand topography, physical maps, political maps, where places are in relations to other places. We talk about major battles and major monuments and all of these things. So what we do is I find it's really important to bring up tons and tons of visuals, pulling it up on Google. My co-teacher, Roz, does a fantastic job of using authentic primary photos and places that she's visited to bring that history to life. Another activity, as you'll see in this photo right here, my co-teacher and I used propaganda posters, but we used something called Pear Deck, which the students are engaging with the text, but it's either a drawing activity, a multiple choice activity. And what I've done sometimes, depending on the kids, is sometimes I'll run 2 Pear Decks. One I'll run for the stronger students, the ones that are at the transitioning, expanding, or commanding level. And depending on the other ones, I will run a different Pear Deck, so those students can still participate in the lesson. I also do multi-language notes. I will make notes in the native language of the students, especially when it comes to constitutional documents. Those are pretty tough to read. So if I can, find a way to put them in their native language, the New York State Regents does come in Chinese and Spanish and Creole and Korean. So I do pull stuff from them. We do word walls. And something that I've really experienced, really put into practice this year was read alouds. Reading aloud more to my students, a lot of books. I pulled a picture book, a young reader's book about Ruby Bridges. And that was great for students to kind of get the prior knowledge that they needed for the activities. So those are just some activities I do in US. This is government. You can see here's the posted activity right here. Do a lot of grouping, flexible grouping. And these kids, 1, 2, will be graduating next week. And I'm so excited. All right. So now Katie's going to talk about some of the activities that she does with Global.
So in our global history class, we really try to make things as hands-on as we can. So for example, when we start the beginning of the year and we talk about nationalism, it's kind of a hard concept for students, especially ELLs, to understand. So we created this game called Classroom Wars. So the students break up into groups. They create their own country, if you will. They create their own flag. They describe the history. And we play this dice game where they can basically expand their empire, just like, they did during the imperialism time. So they get to feel what it is like. They get to feel their own nationalism, their own pride for their country as they expand their empire. Some other things that we do, we have a Blues Clues lesson where we give the students different clues throughout the period. We throw in different items throughout. And for this particular activity, the students had to decide whether imperialism was overall positive or negative. So they were provided with some documents, which in this case, they scaffolded for the ELLs, giving them sentence frames to answer the questions, or I may have modified the document slightly just to make it a little easier to read. And then we also, as time went on in this lesson, we gave them different manipulatives, different clues that they could add into their handy dandy notebook. So it kind of brought back some memories from their childhood as they learned about imperialism through Blues Clues.
You're good.
Can I go back?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. So this is just, again, how we kind of modified the organizer a little bit. So for our beginning ELLs, they had to describe if it was heroic or criminal. So they kind of just had to circle the image here. And then the answers they kind of had throughout those documents that we gave them anyway. So this was just another example.
And it's pretty cool because they dress up like Blue's Clues, which is pretty awesome.
We do. I'm usually blue.
It's so cool.
Greg is Steve. He's got his rugby shirt. So it's a fun day. Some other things that have been a little newer to our lesson planning are our outdoor adventures. So yes, we came complete with our outdoor adventure gear that day. We had our adventure hats, and this was when we taught about the Ottoman Empire. So as you walked out of our school, Greg, being the history lover that he is, noticed that the outside looked like Anatolia when you looked out. So we took the kids on a tour through the back of our high school so they could experience what the Ottoman Empire would have looked like. And also for this, students were answering questions on a Google form on their phones as we went through each segment of this outdoor adventure. So you get to see that. So each student really was involved. Here we have Osman, and then we also have our cannons. These are our cannons here, and our Byzantine wall builders. So they had to launch the cannonball at Constantinople to break down the walls, and our Byzantine Empire builders had to try to rebuild that wall within a certain amount of time. So it was a fun day in the beginning of the year. We also have our sailors who are sailing down the Bosphorus Strait.
Oh, poor Woody.
I know. They were bombing the ships. So again, just a lot of fun. It kind of put it into perspective for the ELLs. They got to experience it hands-on because this can be a kind of tough lesson for students to relate to, talking about the Ottoman and the Mughal Empire, something that so foreign to many of them. Another thing we like to do is station teaching. So in order to get both of us involved, because again, I am not a certified history teacher, so we both feel that it's important for both teachers to be up there for the students to really see that both of us are their teachers, not just Greg and not just me for our ELLs. So we both have stations that we are in charge of during the period, and the students rotate through our stations.
Getting some good comments. Everybody's loving our activities. It's fun, and you know, I don't work with Greg, but it's nice too because I know that so Global 10 is the year before U.S. history, so that I know that all of these students, when they come to me and Roz in U.S. history, they have a really good basis of understanding different styles of teaching and what works and how to analyze documents. So it's a really, really nice flow that we have going on in our district. Mm-hmm. Are we good?
Yep. So for this particular station, we started talking about Africa and the decolonization of Africa. So Greg here has a station where we're talking about symbols. So he has the rungu here, and I'm having the students take a look at a particular image, which we'll show you on the next slide. So we have this image. It's a strong image for the students to look at, and we have some questions, and they get increasingly more difficult. So describe what you see. So, you know, for our beginning ELLs, they might just say the word gun or soldier. Whereas then we move on to what do you think the people want and what do you think they're willing to do to get what they want? And really what we're trying to get students to do here is use evidence. So here we don't have any textual based evidence. They can just use what they see. But if they tell us that you know, these soldiers would be willing to fight, we're going to follow up with the question, well, how do you know? Because we want them to get into the habit of using evidence from whether it be an image or a document to back up whatever it is that they're saying. So this was Greg's station with the two symbols. So Greg would ask them, what do you think the item is used for? And which of these two symbols would be a symbol of a revolution? Because at this point, they're used to looking at symbols of revolution. So most of the time, right, they're going to say the rungu because it looks like a stronger symbol. However, it's really the fly whisk here from Jomo Kenyatta. Wow. So here's some of the examples, and the students will have an opportunity to touch, feel, discuss these items, and it really brings history to life for them because it's not just an image. They can see it firsthand and experience it.
Yeah. Great. Doing good.
Thank you.
What do we got? All right. So one of the biggest challenges that we faced for ELL learners is the ability to do writing. And Katie, this year we had to change the New York State changed the way that students had to write. And the important thing is, and we've noticed too, is that students are used to, some ELLs are students to just used to regurgitating facts. And and for New York State, you have to be able to be descriptive and analytical and prove, and it can be tough for our ELLs. So one of the things that we do is we like to break it down for them. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is some of the ways that I do breaking down in U.S. history. So in U.S. history, students have to write a thematic essay, which is a theme-based task that requires them to describe historical circumstances and impact. So one example is government actions. Throughout United States history, the federal government has taken actions that has either expanded or limited the rights of individuals. These government actions have had significant political, social, and economical impacts on the nation. So these students have to be able to, and there is no information for them. They have to pull this from their brain, and they get pretty overwhelmed. For the thematic, it can be difficult. The document-based question is a little bit better because the students do have documents to reference, and usually there are scaffolding questions, which are really great for our ELLs because it allows them to understand the topic. So they may know 2 out of the 3, which is really, really good. So the first thing that I do with them is when we do the thematic is I use this formula called the T formula. Okay. And I adapted this from one of my colleagues in the social studies department who teaches AP, and she uses this for her AP, her inclusion, everybody. So the first thing that I do is when I give the first essay, I write the thesis statements for the students. I give them the thesis statement. We break it down. I give them the full one. We break it down piece by piece, and I want them to understand what exactly is the question asking. And as the year progresses, I take one of the thesis statements away, and by the end of the year, because they know by the feedback and all the different ways we've written, they're able to write their own. So if you look here, this example here would be, that addresses the task would be 3 goals were, improve working conditions, make wages higher, and stop child labor. And then these goals attempted to improve society for all people. So as they advance through their language, they can create a new thesis statement that fits their need. So the first thing is I do a framed intro paragraph where I have them define the topic, which you would find here in your theme. Then I have them tell me the date and location. Tell me when it happened. Sometimes in the box, it'll tell you when it takes place, and then the thesis. So this really gives ELLs a nice frame, and as they become stronger, they're able to add more. The next thing is, this is how I want them to write their body paragraphs, and this is the T formula. It's TEA, topic sentence, evidence from the documents, if it's a DBQ, or just evidence of your knowledge if it's a thematic. And then the A is the importance of the idea, the event, or the legislation. So what I do is when I give them the in-class essays, or I give them the midterm exam, I provide this scaffold for them. So I will give them an example. The name of the goal was important because, then tell me what it did. You'll see here I put it in Spanish and I put it in Chinese. Then I go in here and I tell them the evidence. The reason for this was, I give them the sentence starter. Why did they want to reform, and how was it achieved? And then the A is the analysis. In addition, why was this important? Therefore, as a result of the Indian Removal Act, the Native Americans had to go on the Trail of Tears, right? So it's a nice frame. And then as the students are getting more proficient in their writing, they can expand on this T formula, right? We want them to be important. We want them to feel like what they have to say is important. And if we give them the provided scaffolds, it's going to be great. However, again, like most state assessments, they're not allowed to have any scaffolds on their regions. So this type of strategy is stressed all year long. Okay. And then what I do is I have them go over the conclusion, And then I also tell them at the bottom of their essay, there is a guideline. And I tell them to go through and I want them to write a check next to each part that they've used. So if they're doing the DBQ, they've referenced 5 documents. They can go back to their text. And I want them to put check marks. It's just a good way for them to come back and be accountable for what they've done and be proud of what they've done. If they've accomplished all the bullets, then they know that they've done a really good job. This is how I assess the students. I borrowed this from my dear friend, Miss Katie Topple. You will see her if you get a chance. She's doing a panel. She's leading the panel later, and I believe she's doing her own session. But she developed a 1-point rubric, and I have found that this is to be amazing. Basically, what I do in the middle is I give the criteria for according to what the 3 says on the New York State U.S. History rubric. That what does most students get? So what would they get at a 3, which is what most students can do? And then I incorporate a language objective. What do I want them to do in the language? So this has been really great because students have been able to really see the growth when they do it. And then again, in the 4 and 5 column, I would make a comment that would be exceeding the standard, or I would make a comment here if they used a 2 or a 1. So if they didn't use enough documents, I would write it here. I have found that this 1-point rubric idea has been really, really great for students. This is what my co-teacher uses. So we use this for the commanding students. It's just nice because, again, it's just another checklist. Okay, what I do is when I introduce the model, the T formula, I model what the paragraph should look like with the exact scaffolds given. So you'll see I wrote them an introduction with the definition, the time period, the thesis. I used the frames for the history, frames for the law. So the T, the E, the A. And then SpongeBob and Patrick are happy. And then this is just sample writings, but what we can do is you can check these out at your own time. Students follow the team format. This student who wrote this essay is an emerging student who got an emerging on the New York State NYSE slot in 2018. And if you look closely, you will see that this student used the sentence phrase. So this person gave the American address. Over here, the reason for this was, and in addition. So this student, Katie had this student last year. You can see how much this is. And now I'm going to let Katie wrap it up on, we'll finish up on writing.
More writing.
And then we'll post it. This keeps happening to me. My darn Google keeps dying on me. Google machine. All right.
That's because it's already bored with these enduring issues.
So we'll finish this up, and then what we can do too is we'll hang on for questions. I know we only have like 5 or 6 more minutes left, but we have a ton of stuff on here, so we'll hang out. So Katie will talk about the enduring issues.
Okay. So for the enduring issues, again, this is a brand new thing for those of you who are in the social studies classroom. So what the students are given are 5 documents. There are no scaffolding questions that go with these documents. The students are asked to find a common enduring issue or a common theme. So this could be things like conflict, innovation, interconnectedness, and they need to identify one of those themes between at least 3 of the 5 documents. They then need to discuss how the issue has affected people or how people have affected this particular issue. They also are asked to include outside information, and they also have to discuss how this issue changed over time. So this, in my opinion, can be like a nightmare for an L because they don't always know where to start, and there's really no scaffolding other than the documents. There's no questions to kind of help them to know what to look for, nothing like that. Although this is a great thing because it really gets students to analyze and really consider how these issues have changed over time, it can be very challenging. So the way Greg and I have started teaching this is we've asked our Ls to really use pictures instead of the written documents first to find a common theme. We've given them a list of several different enduring issues to choose from to help them get started. And so rather than using this wordy document, we found pictures to get them to practice using that. The next step we've used is given them an introduction paragraph because there's a certain way we want them to write it. So for example, we have one enduring issue throughout history has been the impact of imperialism and how it led to a rise of innovation as demonstrated by. This key phrase we've taught them is to help them introduce the main idea of the 3 documents they've chosen. So then in the blue, you have their 3 documents, and this also is teaching them how to set up their essay, saying that the first main idea, so the steamship in Africa and Asia, that would be your body paragraph 1, the Enfield rifle in India, body paragraph 2, the building of schools and hospitals in Africa, body paragraph 3. So we give this to them for the first couple of essays, and then we end up taking it away. I also, for each essay they write, I give them some framework. So I give them an outline. I give them some sentence starters, especially for our beginners, just so that they have that to help them get started. Because again, this can be very, very difficult for our L's, especially. Test taking.
Do you want
time for this? Or you want to go to questions?
Yeah, you want to go to questions. Did you want to show that really quick?
Sure. If we have
All right,
time.
so I'm gonna show really quick. There's a thing here on test taking. You guys can check it out. But what Katie is going to show you really quick is something that we both done. I just don't have my example here. I'm just going to. It's how to prepare for an assessment. So what I am going to do is I am going to unshare our screen here, and I'm going to find us. I just have to find my lovely Google Hangout. All right, okay. We're back. See, we have faces. So the last thing Katie's going to show you, this is a really good activity. Because we are both foreign language teachers, right? To start, we have a lot of different ways we teach reading and writing. So we try to rely on some of our second language teaching skills. So this is a really cool activity.
So for those of you who are familiar with TPRS, you generally have a story on one side and then you have images on the other. So in the middle of the year, I had a SIFE student enter our class. And as you know, sometimes that can really throw a wrench in the system, if you will. But she's lovely. So what I wanted to do to help her was create a story, because we would be going through notes and I felt like she really wasn't understanding. So I would summarize what we were doing in a story format and I would read it with her so that she could follow along with me. And then for each segment, I would kind of point to a picture so she can make a connection with it. And then after we read it a couple times and talked about what was going on, I would fold this piece of paper in half so we would only have the images. And as I'd point to each image, she'd have to tell me something that she would remember. So at the very beginning, it really was just words, like she would say industry or natural resources. And sometimes even she'd say the words in Spanish, and that was okay with me because I wanted to know if she was taking anything away from it. So I've been using this more and more. Maxwell. Been using this more and more, and I've been seeing quite an improvement with her. And it's been great. So I took what I was using in French and used it with them. And
appreciate that.
If this is something that you can create with your co-teacher, it's really easy. Just brief summary. It doesn't even have to be this long. Like you could really just take a paragraph if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's great. I've done that more in my ELA class. We read some really difficult persuasive speeches, and it's a really great activity because you can fold it, you can put a flashcard. It's a really nice way for the ELL kids to engage with the text, and they may be able to tell you more. And I always find this with social studies is they know the stuff, but when they see the questions and they see the wording, they totally freak out. So sometimes I'm like, let's just talk it out, right? So I know we ran a little over, but I know there's so many people watching and I know we don't want to keep you from the panel, but, does anybody have any questions for us? There was some people here were asking for us to share the links to our stuff.
Oh, okay.
So what we can do is we can make a folder and we'll tweet them out. We'll put it out on Google Drive. The only thing we usually ask, and this is something I always say, is just do file, make a copy, just so that way you're not messing with the original. But I'll hang out for a minute here and I'll see if anybody has any questions. But feel free to check out the rest of our PowerPoint. We do have some student testimonials on there. You should check it out. They were quite excited to participate.
We told them they'd be famous. So.
Yes, we said they're going to be internet famous. They'll be on the Twitter machine, we always say. But we are very lucky with what we do. We work really well together. Mm-hmm. There's a nice continuity. Katie next year is going to be in the 9th and the 10th grade. I'm going to be again in the 11th and the 12th grade. So we kind of run the social studies department.
Yeah.
So, but our L's, I'm going to brag a little bit. Our kids have done very well in the New York State Regents exams, especially with all the changes, with all the testing. And they've done really well. And it's not an easy, either test is easy.
No. And I think a lot of it, their success comes from the fact that we all collaborate. It's not just us. It's also with the social studies department,
Correct.
whether it be with our own co-teachers or with the others. And I think that's the most important piece.
It's a big family, which kind of piggybacks off of what Andrea and Maria was saying this morning. Is we are, I'll come to Cali. I'm coming to Cali.
I know. I
this
just
summer.
saw that too. Can we come visit you?
Yes, I'm coming to Cali this summer. So I'll just pull this up really quick here. I'm going to just pull up our contact information. I'm just going to share here. So you'll see here, this is our contact information. That's my email address. That's my Twitter handle. And that's Katie's Twitter handle and her email. Please feel free to email us questions, comments, nothing mean. No, I'm just kidding. But I hope that it just popped up on the interwebs. And thank you for joining us. I know we ran a little over. Listen, I'll come to California. You pay. I'm down.
I'll go to Canada.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody. Wow, people. So please feel free to go back and watch this. Katie and I will put together some of the resources, the T formula, some of our strategies, and we'll go from there. But enjoy the rest of the conference. There's so many other amazing people. So totally check out everybody. And let's see. Peace out from Long Island. Bye. Enjoy your summer.